Welcome to the Empower Hour, my friends. It's Rodney Allgood, Coach Rod, coming to you with another edition of the Empower Hour. For those of you who are new to the group or new to the Facebook videos, this is something we do once a week. We broadcast live on Sundays, and the purpose of this broadcast is to give ex-Jehovah Witnesses the proper tools to move forward in life. I appreciate you joining every week. For those of you who are regular viewers of the program, share this with as many friends as you can who may be going through things. Go ahead and join the Empowered Minds Facebook group, and you'll find that link in the chat of this video. Today, we are talking about learning to move forward. This is part 2. We did part 1 last week. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you some tips that address key things that ex-Jehovah Witnesses struggle with after leaving. You know, the most difficult thing is to find your way, because you spent so many years being programmed to only live life one way, to only see life through this window. And when you leave the witnesses, that does not change. You suddenly don't just open up your mind and acclimate with the rest of the world. There are things that we deal with because of our programming of the mind that remain after we leave. So we may have thrown away the doctrine, but we still have the programming that comes from the witnesses. That programming affects the way we see the world in general. It affects the way we see other people. And most of all, it affects the way we see ourselves. And we have a hard time navigating the world in which we find ourselves in. You know, last week we talked about the mind, how the mind is programmed, how the mind sees things through its programming, how the subconscious mind is programmed through repetition. And that's why witnesses are so deeply programmed, is because you do the same thing over and over and over again. And you take in the same information over and over and over again. And it just doesn't stop. You know, it's difficult to acclimate into a world that was brought up differently. You know, a world that maybe went to college and got educated in different things, a world where people were able to explore themselves and explore different belief systems and really have a knowledge for why they do what they do. They can live a much more intentional life than a life that's just moving on its programming. So let's start with the first thing that we're going to discuss today. It's the need for a conscious rewiring, an intentional rewiring of the mind. As we discussed last week, you know, you have 3 components of the mind: the conscious, the subconscious, and the creative subconscious mind. We are ruled by our subconscious mind. The repetition of doing things and hearing the same things over and over and over again becomes how we see the world. It really dictates how we move in the world. We need to consciously address that. It's not going to just go away on its own. You know, being a witness can make us very judgmental of ourselves. It can make us very judgmental of other people. It can give us twisted views of things like money and you know, abundance in this world. It can give us some limitations as far as relationships. For women, it really does a doozy on you, because you weren't even treated the same as males. And again, that's going to affect your life and how you move in the world. In 2024, so many of those things don't work anymore. The world is not being governed by, you know, things that were written 2,000 years ago. It's a different world, and women have a big place in this world. But with the programming you were given, it's hard to keep in step with the world. So we need to consciously rewire our minds. It's kind of like back in the day, back in the 80s, if you were a 70s or 80s baby, or grew up in those times, we had the cassette tapes. And when we got tired of the cassette tape, we'd record over the songs. If we didn't have the money to buy a new, blank cassette tape, we would record over the song and we put new music over it. It doesn't mean that what was there isn't there anymore. We just recorded over it. And that's what we need to do as ex Jehovah Witnesses. We need to record over the programming with things that support what we want in our lives. We've got to record over the old witness programming, or we'll be stuck with the residue of that programming forever. One way to do that is with affirmations. The same way the witnesses programmed your mind, you're going to reprogram your mind. Affirmations help. Saying things over and over again that are powerful, things that put you in the best light. Affirmations. You can look up on YouTube, just look up affirmations and listen constantly to things that challenge your previous programming. Most of you are programmed that you will never be good enough, that you were born of sin. They used to use the analogy of the damaged baking pan. Like you're going to have the damage because of what happened thousands and thousands of years ago. Like you can never be good enough. You're undeserved. When you have those messages in your mind that you're not deserving, then you will create a life that matches the belief that you're carrying. If you think you're not deserving, you will find that you are right. Not because it's the truth, it's because you will create a life that limits what you deserve. And if you move beyond what you think you deserve, you will find ways to sabotage that growth. You will find ways to sabotage yourself. You see, there's a comfort zone that we all have. There's a comfort zone that is just the things that we're used to. Comfort zone doesn't mean that you want to be there, it's just what you're used to. And your mind is always trying to reset to keep you in this space, your comfort zone. Some of you have a comfort zone of being this exiled Jehovah's Witness, a comfort zone of kind of being a victim in a way. You were victimized, but you can't stay in that victimhood. And sometimes our comfort zone is the place that allows us to give excuses for the way our life is today. Remember this about life: life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do about it. Everybody has a tough life. Life is not easy. I don't believe the planet Earth was intended to be easy. It's a challenging planet. It's a planet of duality. It is the opposite of everything. You're going to be challenged. If you live a long life, you will be majorly challenged. I don't care who you are. So the fact that we grew up as witnesses is a challenge to get over that programming. But we must step up to the challenge. We must be big enough to take this challenge on. And we must begin to consciously rewire our thinking. You were wired to think a certain way. For some of you that have struggled after leaving the witnesses, let's say if life really went downhill and maybe addictions became a part of the problem, or maybe a life that was just out of control, just you're just doing everything that you couldn't do when you were a witness, and you find yourself out of control. Well, that very well might equate to your programming as well. When you have a belief in your mind, your super subconscious mind finds a way to bring that to pass. So if you believe that those who leave Jehovah lose his Holy Spirit and their life will be just crazy and you'll have no morals and you'll just be the worst person doing every form of decadence that you can find, if you carry that program belief, then there's a chance that you created that in your life. It's not lack of Holy Spirit. It's not Satan. It's not any of those things. You are simply doing what you were programmed to do. If you are struggling with that, some people move right through that, no problem. Some people really struggle with it because it's a program belief. That's what you believe would happen. Look at the way we thought of This fellowship people are people who left the religion when we were a witness. I mean, this is a religion that tells its members that those who leave are mentally diseased and eat from the table of demons. Now, if you ever accepted that as truth in your subconscious mind, then how do you look at yourself when you leave the religion? Not even consciously. Consciously, you might know it's garbage, but subconsciously, you might have this programming still in you that is helping you to create a life that is in accordance with your subconscious programming. So now we need to reprogram that mind using affirmations, using things that tell us a different story repetitively over and over and over again until we start to wire another belief. I am affirmations are great affirmations. If you go onto YouTube and you just type in I am affirmations, you'll find most times that at first your mind wants to fight the affirmation because it's not in alignment with its programming. So your mind naturally fights things that are foreign or things that are stretching what it calls truth. Remember this about truth: truth is merely what you've accepted as reality. The reality you accept is the truth to you. It doesn't mean it's true for everyone. That's why witnesses can call their religion the truth, because in their mind, it's the truth of the reality that they've created. That's all it is. And you can't tell them any different because they're living in that reality. I don't know how many of you saw The Truman Show. It was a movie by Jim Carrey. And in The Truman Show, everything was perfect. It was a reality TV show, and Jim Carrey's character didn't know that he was born onto a reality show. This giant, giant set was his whole world. Everybody else but him was actors, and everything was perfect. He loved his life, and that could be a witness, right? If you're living within the context of what you believe, you can feel very happy. And he would live this joyous life, and everything was smooth, and everybody was happy. But one day, he figured out that something was wrong. He figured out that this wasn't real. He figured out that there must be more. And it's not that something necessarily went wrong in his life, in as much as he just knew there was more. I got to get out of this set. And as he tried to get out of the set, and he's paddling in the ocean, he has a boat, and he's trying to get out of the set in the ocean. The people who are running the program would push a button like, make the seas rough, so it'd be turbulent, and doing everything to thwart his efforts to leave. And he was leaving because that reality just wasn't working for him. He was aware that there was more. And for a lot of you, that was your experience with the witnesses when you became aware that there's more. When you became aware that you are more, then it's tough to stay in that little world. Now you need to fortify your thought that you are enough. You need to change that thought from saying, I am undeserving, to I am enough. I am enough. Remember, the words I am are the two most powerful words in the human language. I am, because what follows the word I am is supercharged. What follows the word I am becomes ultra powerful. So if you're saying I am not worthy, you just gave power to the words not worthy. If you say I am amazing, yes, you are. You just gave power to the words amazing. If you say I am worthy, yes, you are. You just gave power to the word worthy. Your life is going to follow the direction of what you follow those two words with. I am. I am. Understand the power of those words. When you were a witness, you didn't even self identify. When you're a witness, if I asked you about yourself, you would have said, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Your whole identity means nothing. You are nothing. I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Your whole identity was a religion. Now you just gave power to that religion. Don't even say, I am an ex witness. Don't give it any power. Who are you? We might use the term ex witnesses to find each other on platforms like this. But for yourself, I don't even call myself an ex witness. I'm far beyond that. I'm far bigger than that, and so are you. I'm not going to limit myself to a religion. I am an ex. No. None of you say I'm an ex, Campbell High School student or whatever high school you went to. You don't relate to this place you went when you were 17 years old. You grew beyond that. You're way beyond that. So with the witnesses, be way beyond that. Don't even identify with the word ex-witness. I used to be one. I used to go to that high school, but I've grown way beyond it. Affirmations, meditation, something that the witnesses told you was so evil that the devil's going to find his way into your mind. If you clear your mind out, the devil, how many people walking around possessed by demons because they meditated? This whole world be full of people just walking around possessed by demons. That is nonsense. When you meditate, you become one with yourself. You get answers that jump up from the inside out, because all your answers are already within you. Whenever you're looking for answers outside of you, you'll keep looking. It's like chasing a rainbow. Your answers are within. You've always had them. And when you quiet the mind, you're able to hear the answers. You're able to see yourself. See, the witnesses don't want you to see yourself, because if you truly see yourself, you'll see that you don't need that religion. That's why they don't like stuff like that. When you get time by yourself, you start thinking, or allowing your mind and your heart to come up with answers that you've been searching for. Why do you think so many witnesses woke up during COVID? Because they had time. Witnesses try to keep you busy so you don't have time to think. You don't have time to connect with yourself. Because if you have that time, you will probably wake up. You see, any kind of cult like religion's got to keep you busy. They have to define things for you, and they've got to keep you busy. They've got to disconnect you from you so you can connect to it. Meditate. Spend time with yourself. Don't overcomplicate it. Just spend time with yourself. Even walking through nature quietly, listening to the birds chirp and the trees rustle and the sunrise and the sunset, that can be a form of meditation. So make sure you take time for you. Get into personal development. Learn about yourself. Learn about the mind. Learn how you work so that you become the captain of your ship. Someone else was the captain of your ship all these years. You need to be the captain of your ship. Learn. Learn how things work. Learn how to become the best version of you, mind, body, and spirit. Feed your mind constantly. Always learn new things. You see, when you learn new things, it doesn't mean you have to bite it all. Doesn't mean you have to ingest it all. When you're a witness, that's how you thought. You had to believe everything they said. And if you saw one thing wrong with something else, you threw it all out. No, you get to choose what you ingest. You're wise enough. You're smart enough. You don't need a religion telling you what to accept and what to dismiss. At least you'll know why you believe what you believe. At least you'll know. I exposed myself to all kinds of things. If it made sense to me and it resonated, I accepted it. If it didn't, man, not for me right now. Some things that I rejected a few years ago, I accept today because I grew to a place where it now made sense. But allow yourself the journey, personal development, allow yourself to grow. Next, learn to manage your emotions. Your emotions are the most powerful thing that you possess. Your emotions. Your emotions are like the gasoline in your automobile. It's what takes you from one place to another. Having no control of your emotions gives you no control of your life. Having no control of your emotions will turn your life into a roller coaster ride. You'll wake up every day not knowing what day you're going to have because your emotions are not controlled by you. Your emotions are something that can be easily triggered by other people. You don't want to live like that. You want to manage your emotions. No emotions is bad. Don't think I'm saying that you've got to be in a great state of mind all the time. That's not human. Every emotion is valid. Every emotion is valid. You just don't want to marinate in the negative ones. You want to cultivate your life in a way so that the positive emotions can flow freely. Manage your emotions. Watch what you're ingesting. Watch what you're taking into your mind. You got to be the bouncer of your ears. You got to be the bouncer of your eyes. You got to have the security system that protects what goes in this head. Because if you dwell on things that make you feel bad, you won't be happy. You won't be happy. Whether you're happy or not is mainly based on how you feel. So sometimes we take in things for hours that trigger us, video after video after video of things that trigger us. It's not helping us. It's not helping your emotions. Do things that make you happy. Do things that you enjoy now that you don't have to go to the meetings and field service. Do things that make you feel good. Go ahead and put yourself in first position. That's okay. It's not selfish to put yourself in first position because when you keep your glass under the faucet, your glass is always full. When you keep your glass under the faucet, you don't have to worry about if it's half empty, half full. You don't have to worry about having an empty glass. You can have a big gallon, 10-gallon bucket under that faucet. And eventually that bucket's got more than what's in the glass because it's pouring over. And you're sharing with everybody else your overflow. You're sharing more than you're keeping, but it's going in your glass first. So learn that that's a part of your rewiring. Right? Witnesses would always tell you that focusing on self is selfish. They would confuse confidence with conceit. Don't ever confuse those two things. You're given gifts, everyone's given gifts. Dwell in your gifts, do the things you do well, share those gifts with the world, and you'll find that you'll feel good. Random acts of kindness. Witnesses always just concentrated on their world, their people. When there was a disaster, they fix all the witnesses' homes as they walk by everybody else. Every now and then they'll give somebody a hand, but not normally. They're not doing things in the community. Do good things, random acts of kindness. Buy someone their coffee next time you're in a coffee shop. Hey, sir, can I buy you coffee? Ma'am, I'll buy you coffee today. See how it feels. See if you can stay in a negative frame of mind after doing something like that. Remember, your mind can't hold two emotions at the same time. It's got to pick one. So when you intentionally do something that makes you feel good, the negative goes away. But most people are drawn to the negative conversations. If I were to make these videos for those of you watching on YouTube, if I made my videos about the Jehovah Witnesses and my anger and then I'm gonna destroy them and all that, I'd get 20 times the views because the human mind tends to be drawn toward the negative. But you got to program your mind to be drawn toward the positive. So it's never going to change here. We're just looking for our tribe. We're looking for the people that want to move forward, right? But know that about your mind. You've got to manage your emotions. You can't let people trigger you all the time. I was having a conversation with a young woman this morning who has to go and confront her ex-husband about something with their kids, their shared kids. And she was concerned about really, keeping it together while she's talking to him. And I go, no, you keep your energy high. You keep your frequency. You keep yourself high. You manage your emotions. Don't let other people dictate how you feel. And that's for all of you watching. You're going to get disrespected. You're going to be belittled. You're going to be made to feel as you're wrong. All these negative things are going to come at you by people who are still in the religion. You can't make them happy unless you return and become one of those. So you know what they're going to do. Learn to depersonalize it. That's just what witnesses do. I'm not going to personalize any of this because my story is your story. Anything I say about family members and how they might treat me, you got the same story. So it's not personal, it's their programming. I kind of feel sorry for them because they're not thinking, they're programmed, they're responding to their programming. So depersonalize it and always keep your energy, your emotions high. She was telling me how, she saw her husband and his wife, and normally they're friendly, but they're going through some stuff, so he ignored them. He and she, the husband and the new wife, ignored her. And I said, you just keep saying hi. You just keep being loving. You just keep saying hello. Every time you see them, you don't change. See, they're expecting you to change. Witnesses do things to hurt you on purpose so that you feel bad and you respond and you come back. They instruct their people that, don't talk to them. They'll miss their family so much they'll come back to Jehovah. That doesn't make any sense. They miss their families so much they come back to Jehovah. No, they miss their families so much that they come back to their families. Let's not get that twisted. Two people told me last week that they're going back, not because they believe any of it, but they're going to go and fake it and do what they got to do because they miss their families so much. But the problem with that is they will get their family back but lose themselves. They'll get their family and lose themselves. That will never work. They'll be back out again. Because when you lose yourself, there's no worse betrayal than the betrayal of self. I'm going to say that again. There's no greater betrayal than the betrayal of self. So, as mad and as pissed off as you can feel at your family when they shun you, when you are purposely living out of alignment, that is the greatest hell. That is the greatest kind of betrayal. Self betrayal. You never want to betray yourself. Always stay in love. Love is a high frequency. Stay in love, stay in gratitude, manage your emotions. Gratitude is a big one too. Every day, think of things that you're grateful for. Stop dwelling on the things that you lost if you can't control it, and dwell on what you're grateful for. Get out in nature and just be a part of this wonderful world. What are you grateful for? You could get a phone call tomorrow that could make your problems feel like nothing. If you got a phone call that something was drastically wrong with somebody or you lost somebody you love, stay in gratitude. You don't know what tomorrow holds. And what you're complaining about today could mean absolutely nothing tomorrow if the worst of the worst happens to you. Dealing with shunning. How do you deal with shunning? You got to have something to look forward to. You got to have a North Star. You got to be moving towards something. You got to be focused on where you're going, not just standing in place looking at your loss. You got to make the decision that you've made matter. Okay, I left the witnesses so I could do this. I left it, I didn't believe it, and I'm letting down this heavy weight of the religion. I'm gaining this. I'm going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's no fun to be shunned by the other caterpillars while you're still a caterpillar. If you're inching around and just trying to be accepted by caterpillars that are rejecting you, you'll have a sad life. But the moment you become a butterfly, it doesn't matter. You're on to bigger, better things. They won't understand you. Understand that people won't understand you. Accept that. People that don't grow don't see the growth in others. I heard this analogy once. It was a giraffe that was eating the leaves of a tree way up here. Where a giraffe's got that long neck, he's eating leaves that only a giraffe can reach. And the turtle wanted to know what was going on. So the turtle is watching the giraffe, trying to figure out what he's eating and what's going on up there from a turtle's perspective. A turtle has bad eyes at that. And the turtle goes, I know what's going on, and runs off to give his report to the other people in that terrain. You see, a giraffe and the turtle can be in the same terrain, doesn't mean they're the same. And the turtle goes off and gives his report. And then he comes back, and the giraffe Here's what the turtle's been saying. Got the rumors came back to him. So the giraffe puts that big long neck down and decides to have some words with the turtle. But after a few minutes, that 25-pound heart that the giraffe has is pumping blood through that neck, and the giraffe passes out. And what's the moral of the story? You can't explain giraffe things to turtles, nor should you try. The turtle wasn't lying in his eyes. The turtle was just giving a report from a turtle's perspective. And that's what witnesses are like. Don't waste your words. If you keep moving, if you keep going through the process of becoming a butterfly, a caterpillar doesn't understand butterfly things. The caterpillar's got to put a story around it. It's got to diminish it to make it fit their world. Because nothing's more important than caterpillar world to caterpillars. They don't get butterfly things. So dealing with shunning is something that we all deal with on some level for the most part. Be kind, be loving. Wherever you can, show love. Don't play their game. Try to depersonalize it. Understand that they are under the control of mind control. They're being programmed. Be loving, be kind. Never stoop to their level. Never stoop to their level. Never play their game. Always play your game. Witnesses expect you to continue to play their game after leaving. Like you're supposed to act like some exiled Jehovah Witness. Like you're supposed to put your head down in the grocery market and walk down the other aisle. I don't avoid anybody. I walk up to everybody. I shake your hand. I give you a big hug. I'm like, how's the family? How you doing? Oh, Rodney, the end is coming. Aren't you worried about, are you going to come? No, we believe two different things in that aspect of life, but we don't need to discuss that. How's the kids? See, I take over the conversation. I don't let them dictate the conversation. I take over the conversation. I control the energy. I control when it ends. I hijack their own conversation. I don't avoid anybody. I stay in my energy. All of you can do that. You see, you're living in this world still. This still affects you. You're still living in that world where you're respecting things about that world. I don't disrespect it, but I don't respect it either. It just doesn't matter to me. I don't live in it. I don't play by your rules. You don't tell me who I can talk to and who I can't talk to. You have no right to tell me who I can talk to and not talk to. Now you can decide that you don't want to talk to me. That's up to you. You have that right too. You're a sovereign being too. But no one tells me who I can talk to and not talk to. And it's the same for you, but be loving in that interaction. I'm always loving them, always kind. They want to run. Most times when I have interactions with witnesses and their whole thing doesn't work, they shrink right in front of my eyes and they look like I need to get the hell out of here because he's not playing the game. Don't play their game. But be loving and be kind with family members. Be loving, be kind when you do interact. Don't play their game. They won't even know what to do because they're trying to attach what they're doing to something. It's supposed to make you feel some kind of way. Don't let it. Don't let it. Remember the words I am. And if you have the right word after I am, then you're going to be powerful. You're going to walk in your power. You're not going to shrink down when you deal with witnesses. So let's bring our panel up. All right. Who wants to start the discussion?
I can start.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, so you mentioned the Truman Show. It's interesting how I remember the movie. Uh, they were trying to, make him stay in that little bubble, and when every time he wanted to leave, they would say, "Oh, it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous outside. There's radiation. He couldn't cross the bridge because there's radiation outside." And they would make him stay. And then every time he was planning, they were always saying, "Oh, it's too dangerous." Or when he actually tried to leave on that boat, they made it dangerous for him. And then he persisted, and then eventually left. And then when you're in the cult, it's exactly the same mindset. They always tell you it's too dangerous outside. It's dangerous. You're safe with us, and all the world outside is dangerous. And since safety is like our number one need, we need to feel safe in order to even function. Very often, people would not research, would not check what's outside, would not educate themselves, because you portrayed it to us as something that it's not safe. But it's interesting how it switches, and the moment we actually decide to leave is the moment we realize it's not safe for us to be in this organization. When we realize this organization is causing harm, I remember like it was yesterday when I realized, oh, at first when I was a PMO, I stayed because of the family. I thought I'm not gonna do this to my wife. I'm not gonna do this to my children. It's gonna rip out the family apart, and it's safer to stay in as a PMO. But the moment I realized I am actually harming my family, I'm harming my children by keeping them in this organization. That's the moment when everything switched, and I'm like, oh no, I don't care what kind of a hit I'm gonna get. I am not passing this on to the next generation. And the moment you realize you're harming yourself and you're harming others, that's the moment everything switches. So it's a great lesson for anybody who, you got to understand when you're talking to Jehovah's Witnesses, they're living in this fear. They're thinking, oh, I'm safe in this organization. And until that changes, they will do whatever it takes to protect it. And sometimes they got to be ready for it. If they're not ready for it, there's very little you can do to wake them up. So I like
Yeah,
that point you brought.
yeah. Witnesses are like people who have to stay on the shallow end of the pool, right? Kids, not only they're on the shallow end, they've got all the safety devices and the flotation devices with lifeguards everywhere. Just like you can't swim. Like they try to tell you that it's impossible to swim, that you can't swim, that you need these lifeguards all around, and you need these flotation devices, and you have this fear. If you were taught like that, and there, you know how the pool has the line where it's the deep ends on this end, all the kids got to stay on this end. That line is so bad. You will drown if you go on the other side, right? And no, when you get out, you know that you can swim, that you have the ability to create as you want, that you don't need all the flotation devices. You don't need people looking over you 24/7. And like Jack said, he found his why. What I like about what he said is he found his why. It was even greater than himself. It was his family and his children, knowing that um, they would be stepping into a life that was going to be out of alignment. And we make so many big decisions when we're young as witnesses, right? We get baptized as a teen, sometimes before that, or we get married at 18, 19 years old before we even know what love is. You can really create a challenging life really early in life as a witness. So that was such a wise thing and a really unselfish thing for you to do, Jack, because there was a lot of good things that you could have put your hat on. You had a lot of good friends and a lot of good, the community, that warm community that's there. I'm not going to say anything bad about the community. It's a great thing, but to move away from that actually shows that ultimately you have a lot of courage, because a lot of people stay just for that. It's nothing to do with Jehovah or the Bible or anything. It's the community that they're afraid to walk away from. Good share. Next, Cindy.
I really like how you mentioned that we really have to see ourselves for who we are and not what they taught us to believe. Being a young girl growing up in the organization, I was never allowed to feel like I was smart enough to make my own decisions. I always had to get approval from the elders or approval from my father, or eventually would be the approval of my husband had I stayed in. Um, it didn't make me feel like I had a lot of value. I didn't bring a lot of value. I was more of a support person. So when I left and I found myself trying to make a living for myself and eventually myself and my children as a single mom, I always tried to be a people pleaser with my boss. And I was afraid to make the decisions that they really wanted me to make. And I would always go back and ask, hey, do you think this is right? Or what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And one day I had one of my bosses say, "You already know these answers. Why do you always come back to me?" And that made me think for a little bit, but I still was so used to going to get permission and not trusting myself. And Rodney, many years later, when I met you and I took your deprogramming boot camp, and you and I had a couple of long conversations, and I started to connect with who I was based on giving myself some of that quiet time and asking myself in my heart, who am I? And listening to my heart, because the answers are there. The answers are always inside of you. When you take the time to quiet your mind and listen to who you are, and not assume that everyone outside the organization is going to view you as a woman the same way the organization did, they really will value you if you speak up. So I started to be a little more courageous at work, and I started to speak up, and I had the answers, and I was more confident because I did the work that you told me to do. You put together the missing pieces of learning who I was and being proud of who I was and acknowledging the strengths that I had that I learned by doing that quiet time. And I'll tell you, I made strides. I got promoted twice in like 3 years after I did the boot camp, after I put in the work, and after I started realizing what my gifts were and what I had to offer, and not comparing what my gifts were to what other people's gifts were. You don't have to have the same gifts, but what you have, you hone in on and you strengthen those and you recognize those and you share those, and great things will happen. And pretty soon, what you used to think you were and what they told you you were are just part of the past. And you can make bigger strides going forward when you do that.
I love it. I love that course helped you so much. She's talking about the JWD programming boot camp for those of you watching. If you haven't done that, put that on your list. That's going to help you move forward by years. You don't have to struggle with all these steps. You
And
know,
Rodney, I would like to say, when I took your boot camp, I had already been out over 20 years. So please don't think that the boot camp is just for people who are recently out, because some of the residual thinking stayed in there without me even knowing it. And I didn't recognize it until I took the course. So don't think it's just for newly out people.
yeah, thank you for that. But what I love about what you said is the truth of the matter is that women are really, really bamboozled in that religion. If you believe something, you hear something enough, it becomes your truth. It's like back in the day when they had slavery in America, slaves were taught that they were not capable of reading. So guess what? Very few would try. But not only did they tell the slaves that they were incapable of reading, it was illegal for a white person to teach a slave to read. You see the play there? Witnesses is kind of the same. They control your information. They tell you what to think and what to believe, and then your information is controlled. So why would a woman's mind be any less than a man? I'm no smarter than a woman because I'm a man. It's ridiculous, right? So you start playing small because you were taught not to really believe in yourself. You were disconnected from your true intuition. Women have amazing gifts that men lack. That's why it makes such a nice pairing, because men and women carry different strength. It doesn't mean one's better than the other. Doesn't mean one should dominate the other, right? So I'm glad your boss told you that. You wouldn't have never heard that in the witnesses, right? If you were out in service on a Tuesday morning and it was you and a bunch of ladies and a 14-year-old baptized male, who's in charge? Right? That does something to your mind. I've got to put this over my head because my son's here. My baptized son is here, and I gotta, kind of bow down to my baptized son. Craziness. Thank you for the share. Next, Gary.
Every human, a fundamental need of every human is to have control of your own environment And when you think about it, a lot of what happens in life is out of our control. We get in a car accident that we didn't cause. We have a financial setback we couldn't have foreseen, or someone dies. We don't control a lot of what happens in life. So it's really essential for us to be able to control what we can. But you get out of the Jehovah's Witnesses and you get this crazy thing called shunning. That's another thing that's completely out of our control. Well, close to 100% out of our control, if not 100%. And I think what happens with some people that even years later are dominated by anger and resentment. And, they take the attitude like, 20 years later, they hear that their mom's sick. So I'm not calling her. She couldn't call me for 20 years. I'm not. No, I'm not. So they're kind of dominated by this anger and resentment. That's a kind of an artificial way of controlling our environment, because we can't control the fact that they're treating us the way they do, and we need to because it's something it's a great loss for us. So it's a way of taking back the control, of saying, like, I'm gonna shun her. She can't shun me. I'm gonna shun her. We think that we're controlling it. Like, nobody's gonna make a fool out of me. You can't treat me like that. I'm gonna treat you like that. So we think that we're controlling it, but what we're really doing is allowing anger and resentment to control us. And that anger and resentment would not be there if not for the fact that the JWs are shunning us, and that they want us to believe that we're bad, and the only way we can be a good person is to come back to the organization. So what's really happening is we're really under control of the JWs if we're living our lives in a state of anger and resentment when it comes to the shunning. If we kind of turn off the resentment and anger switch and turn on the love switch, we have control out of that. They don't want us to be able to love. They only want us to be able to love if we go back to the organization. They want that story to be true, that, oh my God, when people leave, they become drug addicts and sex maniacs, and they, oh my, what a failure. And he is so angry. He my son doesn't even pretends I don't exist. So we're basically following what they said is going to happen to us, and they can't control us if we're going to insist on being loving, of being what was the word you used before? Grateful for what we can be grateful for. They can't control that. They like us to not be have love and not be grateful for things, because it would prove it disproves their whole story. So for those people, I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but I really think that in most cases, when somebody's out 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, and they're still living under this fog of anger and resentment, we're not really in control of ourselves when we're doing that. So if we show love and gratitude in whatever way we can, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to call the person that's shunning us or write them a letter or whatever, but just look at them in a loving way, like realize it. Well, if it's our mother, realize that this is the woman that brought me into the world, and hope good things for them. And, just don't hold on to that anger and resentment.
I want to add to that. I think it's important that we understand people, that we understand our loved ones. And normally the story goes deeper than just the witnesses, right? Someone who is really loving naturally has a hard time completely shunning people. It's just not who they are as people. Those that were lacking something, say somebody had a horrible, horrible childhood and was abused and all kinds of horrible things, and it was really tough and they never felt accepted. And then they become a part of this organization with this community that surrounds them. They get so afraid of losing that community. It's everything to them. That sometimes that community, because it's filling this void that they've been carrying their whole lives, they will turn on you first, right? Because they're so afraid of losing this. It's everything to them. So sometimes you have to understand that what's going on with somebody is beyond the witnesses. It's a hurt from even prior to the witnesses, if they were not a witness before, right? Where this thing is feeling something that they need so bad. And anything that threatens this thing that is filling the void for them has to be eliminated, because the witnesses do a good job at connecting that feeling with God, and they make it all Jehovah. So it becomes about that. It becomes one thing. So when you understand the psychology of what's going on there, you can accommodate a little bit more. You can go, you know what? It's really messed up, but I get it. I get how your mind works. It's really messed up, but I get how your mind works. And I'm going to stay and resonate with love anyway. Take the higher road always. And when you understand this part of psychology, it's easier to love. The way I look at witnesses is the same way I would look at someone who was had a mental disability, say. So this person looked like a normal person. He looked like a normal 40-year-old man, but he had the mind of a 6-year-old. And even though he looked normal, he's got the mind of a 6-year-old. You walk by him and he says something kind of rude. Well, in your mind, you make that adjustment. You go, you know what? That's right. He's got that disability. I kind of look at witnesses the same way. So you might use that trick to keep yourself from getting triggered. They're just stuck in this loop and they can't move past it. Maybe let's talk about managing emotions. What are your thoughts on emotions? That's a big one. Cindy?
I like talking about emotions because anyone who's followed me in this group for a while knows that I'm heart math certified trainer and coach, and they talk about the role of emotions and how important those emotions are, and connecting with the heartfelt emotions of like care, love, care, kindness, gratitude, because those are all heartfelt emotions. They carry a high frequency that can really set the tone for your day. It can help you with anti-aging and anti-inflammatory things. It can really help you move forward in a positive way. It truly not only affects your day, it affects your health, it affects your mind. So, learning how emotions are chosen by you instead of ruling you. So you can choose your emotions, and the emotions of like sadness and anger and frustration, those are depleting emotions to your energy. They can make you feel down for the day and kind of almost manifest when you start to feel those negative emotions. They're not really negative because they're there for a reason. I choose to call them depleting or regenerative emotions, and the heartfelt emotions are regenerative. So if you understand that as human beings, we have the ability to choose the emotion, and you start your day by focusing on gratitude or love or care and compassion for someone or something in your life, and you choose to focus on that emotion throughout the day, you will feel more energetic, and you will see that things in your life just go better. They're smoother. And if you start your day in positivity and gratitude and end your day in positivity and gratitude, you're going to see that your life becomes like a wide angled lens, and you're going to see things wider and broader and richer, and you're going to be able to connect with yourself and other people. So I really ask people to understand that emotions are really a big part of who you are. It's what makes you human. And when you connect with those and think about it every day, choose how you're going to start your day and end your day, you'll see your life change exponentially.
Yeah, such a powerful statement. Emotions are everything. When we're funky, we're funky. Learning how to use the negative emotions, or the ones that aren't so positive, to be alarms. Okay, something's not right. What do I need to address? And address it. And if it gets to a point where you can't address it anymore, or you're just kind of at an impasse, then you got to let it go. Address the things you can address, and let go of the things you can't. And remember to look at life from a long-term view, right? What might be such a difficult thing today might turn out in your favor 2 years from now. great stories are normally stories that were really challenging and it seemed hopeless and it flipped around the other way later on, right? So play the long game. If you get stuck in the short game becomes the long game because you're stuck in a loop. Play the long game, learn what to let go, and it might reappear and be the greatest story ever. Everyone's on their own journey. That's the thing about life. Everyone's on their own journey. They're not walking in time with us. So we wake up today. You know what? 10 years ago, there was somebody who left the witnesses looking at us going, hey, when's Rodney ever going to wake up? My God, why is he still in there, right? We were on the other side of that at some point. So play the long game. Gary, you have a share?
Yeah. I was just thinking about this the other day, how when I was at Bethel, I was in the computer department. They never used titles. It just occurred to me the other day when I went in there, I guess you would have said I was I don't know, maybe a senior programmer or something. I was probably at that level. I eventually became a project leader or project manager, but you'd never say, oh, I'm a project manager for the Watchtower. You're just a Bethelite. You're just a Jehovah's Witness. That's all you are. That's all you ever are. So I was thinking about, when I was out of Bethel, in the regular world, but still a JW, if somebody asked me, who are you or what are you? I'd probably say I'm a Jehovah's Witness, but they said, no, I mean, what do you do for a living? I'd say, oh, well, I'm an account manager at such and such a company. But it's really true what you were saying before about affirmations, because when we're a JW, we're just supposed to be a JW pretty much. Like if you ever heard a story about somebody that found someone's wallet and they returned it to them with all the money, all the credit cards, nothing taken out, then the question becomes, if you're a JW and you're talking to a JW about it, oh, well, do they know you're a Jehovah's Witness? Did you give them a Watchtower magazine? Do they know you're a witness? Because it doesn't matter that you did something good. What matters is that you're a JW. So that defined who we were in every way. Now that we're out, if we're thinking, yeah, I'm an ex-JW, like that defines me. As you said before, sometimes we have to say it just to find a website or I'm disfellowshipped. Like I am disfellowship, not I was disfellowship. That's what I am, or I am an apostate, which has a whole bunch of different meanings. It's anything from you're no longer in this religious group or this political group or whatever, or it could mean what the witnesses think it means, that you're a diseased mind, evil person, that you beat your fellow brothers. If you really think that you want that label, that. So we're basically still living by the JW definitions of who we are if we're using any of those labels. So we're not a JW anymore. We're not necessarily ex-JWs. We're not apostates. We're not. I mean, if you want to call yourself an apostate, that's your prerogative. But I'm not disfellowship. I am a what do I do for a living? A life coach. I am a musician. I am a songwriter. Everyone in this panel can say I am this, I am that. You could list 5 or 10 different things of who you are. I'm an empowered woman. I'm whatever, So it's just we just have to lose those labels and find the labels that really define who we are as people.
Yeah. Perfect. Exactly. Thank you so much. Perfectly said. Dean?
Yeah, just going back to your analogy, and just one thing I want to say as well, as everybody was talking, I just suddenly realized that I think one of the realizations that is generally kind of keeps me going is that obviously being for people who are in as a JW, it's serving some purpose. And I think we just need to acknowledge that. I think every organization that people belong to, it's serving them in some way. And I think we just need to acknowledge that and move on. But I just want to, because then it just cuts out a lot of the judgments in our head. That there's a wonderful meme about people are so judgmental. I can tell that just by looking at them. And I always love that. But getting back to the analogy you made about the butterfly, there's always the analogy of the butterfly, of what's catastrophe to the caterpillar is a marvelous thing to the butterfly. And I think one of the things when I was in grade 1, and the story came back to me, we had this headmistress who used to give us lessons, and she had the story about the caterpillar or the butterfly that was struggling in the pupate as was being born, or as it was coming out into becoming a butterfly. And then the person takes a little blade and helps the butterfly to cut it out to make it easier. And part of the process of the butterfly's growth is that stretching as it pushes out of the pupate, because that's how it pushes the stuff into the veins in its wings so that it can fly. And if you actually assist a butterfly out of the pupa, the wings cannot perfectly form, and the butterfly will never fly. And going through a bit of a tough patch myself at the moment, and I kind of hang on to that because I'm going, the struggle is what's making everything I'm doing worthwhile, because it's not success that you achieve that makes you who you are. It's the struggle to get to the success that makes you who you are. And I think one of the things that I know happened to me within the organization was there's a lot of enabling, because when stuff was getting rough, there was some rule that you could call on. You could call on the elders and they would come in, and so nothing, you didn't have to resolve anything yourself, because there was always some rule that would make it work, because you knew how the game was played within that little world. However, that's a big fish in a small pond. And when you're out here, you're a small fish in a very, very big pond, and you've got to figure out those rules, and you've got to struggle through those things to get to the other side. And I think that's one of the things that I hang on to all the time, is going, what am I becoming in this process of becoming who I am? And when I look back at the organization, I just realize, you know what, that world's far too small. There's a big world out here.
And someone saving you steals the lesson from you.
Yeah.
Right? It's always about the journey. It's not the destination. So
Yeah.
in closing, remember this, everyone, whatever you're going through, what you're going through is what's crafting who you're becoming. Make sure you get through it. Bend, but don't break. We all bend at times, but don't break. Who you are at the other side of whatever you're going through is going to allow the greatness that is within you that everyone has. You'll never hear that in the witnesses. Everyone has an inherent greatness within them, and it's what you're going through that forges that. It's like diamonds. Diamonds do not become diamonds without massive pressure. Pearls do not become pearls without massive pressure. When we get through the other side, we will find everything we were looking for. So, my friends, thank you for joining. Those on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and join the Empowered Minds Facebook group in the link in the text. Everyone have a great, great day. Just try to squeeze out a few more days of sunshine and have a great, great week. Take care.